and welcome. You're listening to the West Clay Realty Podcast, hosted by Scot, Pollard and Joekempler.
Hello, and welcome to the West Clay Realty Podcast. My name is Scot Pollard. I'm a 11-year veteran of the NBA. I retired in 2008, NBA champion with the Boston Celtics. And my partner, Joekempler, served for IBM and Lexmark for over 30 years in their marketing department, and realty has become his second career as well. Together we formed Kempler Pollard Realty underneath the West Clay Realty banner, and we decided to do a little podcast here to help educate, inspire, make people feel a little bit more comfortable about the real estate process as you're going to sell your home, or maybe even you haven't bought a home yet, and perhaps we can answer some questions for you. Website is westclayrealtors.com. And without further ado, Joekempler and Scot Pollard provide the West Clay Realty Podcast.
My name is Joekempler. I'm a native of Indianapolis. I grew up on the north side, went to North Central, graduated from North Central, and went to Ball State from there. After graduating college, my wife and I moved to Houston, Texas without a job, but got a job pretty quickly, joined IBM, and was with IBM and Lexmark for about 31 years. We decided to move back to Indiana in 2003. Retired at that time from Lexmark, but actually was with Lexmark for 6 years, IBM for 25. So a career in marketing and sales during that whole time. After retiring, I wanted, like Scott, to get into a second career, and went into flipping houses and actually partnered with a custom builder for a few years. Decided to get my real estate license because it made sense to sell our own properties, and got my license in 2005, so about 15 years ago. In 2006, took over the principal brokerage for West Clay Realty and basically sold homes that we built under the banner of West Clay Realty. In 2007, 2008, when the recession started, decided that maybe home building wasn't the thing to be in for the future, and decided to focus full time into the real estate career, or the real estate end of it, still as West Clay Realty. Not long after that, about 2010, joined FC Tucker, from there Remax, and then finally Sotheby's. All of them very fine companies to be with, and great experience with all of the associates in those companies, and learned a lot, and also gave back a lot. Just this year, decided to go back to West Clay Realty, and as of today, we are West Clay Realty, and Scott and I are the operators for that company. During those 15 years, we've done very well in having a good presence in the village of West Clay and the north side of Indianapolis, primarily in Carmel, Zionsville, Westfield areas, Meridian, Kessler, and so forth. So it's been a good second career, and going back to West Clay Realty makes me feel very good, and going full circle and continuing into the real estate world.
That's Joekempler, ladies and gentlemen. If you're listening in from out of town, he mentioned FC Tucker. If you're not in Indiana, or Kentucky, that's FC Tucker is one of the biggest real estate companies in this state and Kentucky, and I believe that's the only two states it operates in. So if you're from outside of that area and you've never heard of FC Tucker, it's just because you're outside of Indiana and Kentucky, because it's actually one of the biggest real estate companies in Indiana. As far as Sotheby's goes, I did want to mention that, when I picked to who I wanted to work with, I picked Sotheby's because Joe was with Sotheby's. And while it's a great company, and it absolutely is a great company to work for, really enjoyed our time there. As Joe said, we just felt like it was a better move for us personally. So far, so good. It's off to the races, as they say, and it's a new venture for both of us. Well, for me, and back to an old new venture for Joe. But that kind of brings us into why we're doing this podcast, which is there's a lot of reasons why we're going to do this podcast. One of which is to maybe help some people that are undecided or a little bit nervous about buying or selling a home. If you've already got one and it's your first home, you may have some questions about how to sell, and you're not really interested in coming in and talking with a real estate agent because it might be a little bit too much pressure. Or if you've never bought a home before and you've only been a renter, which we've done. I've done that in my short career. I've had a guy that he's my age and he's never bought a house because he's just always moved around quite a bit. And I said, well, look, I know how that is. However, we started talking about the investment side of being a homeowner as opposed to a home renter, and was able to talk him into a wonderful house. Not that I talked him into it against his will. He's a very intelligent financial guy, but he just had never really put the roots down. And now he is a happy homeowner. And so we're going to be imparting mostly Joe's knowledge because Joe is the experienced member of this group. But we're going to be talking about how we give back to the community with every transaction. We're going to be talking, we'll take questions, of course, from anybody that wants to reply, whether we put it on the social media or YouTube, because these will be on both. We welcome questions. We welcome comments. We want you to like and subscribe to this podcast because we do want it to be something that is interactive. And we want people to reach out and feel more comfortable. And this is free advice. We're going to be talking about the transaction process. We're going to be interviewing people that we work with, whether it's lenders or insurance people, and have them answer questions about their particular profession that we're not the experts of. We know about it, but we refer people to be the experts in those scenarios. And so we want it to be a fun podcast, but we also want it to be an educational podcast and something that people can look at and say, hey, you know what? I didn't know that. And once in a while, I'll probably tell some jokes. Joe, do you have anything to add as far as what your vision is for this podcast?
Well, I think that having it be interactive is a big part of it. So the questions coming in would be great, and we can try to get the subject matter experts involved if need be, or at least try to answer those questions that you might have. Hopefully between Scott and I and the experience that we have and the moves, Scott mentioned all the moves he had with the NBA and even here in Indianapolis, but I also moved 13 times. This was my 13th move to Indianapolis, and having gone through the building process, gone through buying and selling, I think we have a lot that we can offer as far as advice from that respect. And we've probably helped, hundreds of buyers and sellers in this market. So we've seen it from the recession all the way through to what it is today, which in the pandemic has been a very vibrant, very bustling, robust home buying experience. So we would encourage any feedback or any questions coming through. Yes.
Well, there you have it. That's our first one. We're in the bag. We're going to keep them all between 10 and 15 minutes because we're not going to try to eat up your day. But as Joe said, we welcome any comments, feedback, or questions, and we will definitely try to address them in the future. Thank you for listening to the West Clay Realty Podcast with Joekempler and Scot, Pollard.
We hope you enjoyed the West Clay Realty Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ask questions. Who knows, your submission may be discussed in a future episode. Thanks for listening.